I know Mr. Barrett asked you some questions, and other members have asked you questions, which, in my opinion, really challenge your credibility. Now, both you and the owner of Corodex, Mr. Wood, testified on October 31st, 2023, and both of you were quite emphatic that you are regularly, both businesses are regularly audited by Indigenous Services Canada with respect to the procurement strategy for Indigenous businesses, and you both have been receiving clean audits. But that was a misrepresentation. It was a lie, because Indigenous Services Canada said all they do with respect to the set-asides that both your companies operate under from time to time is they do pre-audits. They don't do post-audits. Do you agree with that assessment from Indigenous Services Canada?
I would absolutely agree with that. Yes,
right.
For sure.
But you didn't qualify that to the membership. You didn't qualify that to committee.
Well, it's your policy. I mean, like I understand that we go through audits, but I think that's a normal course of action for ISC in its entirety.
Well, I think it's a pretty big deal, sir, when you lead the committee to believe that you're running a clean business, that your Indigenous set-asides are legitimate. They're not operating under a phantom scheme. I know you've been heavily criticized by a number of Indigenous organizations that you're running this. In fact, Bottler even made the same allegation. So these are real concerns. And I think you have to be honest with committee members, sir, because although you haven't been sworn to tell the truth, there is a presumption that you will tell the truth at committee. And there are consequences when people do not tell the truth at committee. So we're going to find out ultimately by the end of this summer through Indigenous Services Canada, who's going to audit everything that you have done, as well as Corodex, hopefully for the last 8 years, if not longer, with respect to all the Indigenous set-asides. Because I think Canadians deserve to know whether or not Indigenous Canadians have benefited from this particular government operation. And if they haven't, then, sir, you'll have some questions to answer. So I put that out to you, sir. Now, the other aspect that concerns me is your relationship with the GC Strategies. Is it accurate, sir, that the one and only time that you worked with GC Strategies was on the Bottler task authorization?
That I would have to ask our staff. I'm not exactly sure if there was anything else in relation to working with GC Strategies. So okay. I'd have to ask our staff about that.
Well, let's talk about Bottler for a moment, please. You do know that Christian Firth testified from GC Strategies that not on one occasion, but upwards to 5 occasions, he deliberately and intentionally doctored work experience for both of the Bottler partners. And he claimed it was a mistake. But given my former background as a Crown attorney, all accused persons, all criminals claim they made mistakes. What in fact Mr. Firth did was commit forgery, and it was a fraud on the government. And what concerns me, sir, is that the Globe recently reported that both you, your company Dalian and Corodex, received those doctored resumes, those fraudulent, forged resumes, and you in fact forwarded that on to the government. That was recent news to me and perhaps this committee, because we were all led to believe that it was Christian Firth at GC who delivered that directly to the government. So it really begs the question, sir, if you've only had a limited amount of time with GC Strategies, why would you accept their material at face value? Because now you're implicated as a joint venture, as a party to the offense of fraud and forgery. It's no wonder that the RCMP are currently investigating your company and that of Corodex, and notwithstanding that you haven't been contacted, certainly does not make yourself in the clear. So you talked about quality management systems in place. Why didn't the quality management system catch these fraudulent resumes?
Yeah, for sure. So it's a good question. So, first and foremost, we're as dismayed as the rest of the committee on the findings from GC Strategies. We were definitely not aware of what was going on, below our subcontractor. The contract between us and GC Strategies is exactly that. We have no reference to Bottler in this case, and what information is being provided, by GC Strategies to us. There are aspects that, and I will be honest with you, there's aspects of third-party verification on employment and that sort of thing, but it's not an industry standard. It's not an industry standard that everybody does in the entire, professional services market. So, what we've learned from this is that even though we do our due diligence on security clearances and putting the CVs together and the categories and the grids and staffing that up to CVSA, what we have learned is that we likely need to put a third-party, verification of employment in place that would allow us to smoke this kind of stuff out, and we just weren't aware of it.
Thank you. That is the time.